Welcome back to the channel. Another stack of records here. I got a shipment in from a guy in Belgium who, I don't know what kind of black ops or shadow government this guy works for, and where he's able to get all these amazing albums from around the world, but he's been a pretty consistent seller that I have found, and I got a cool shipment in from him a few weeks ago, and so slowly I've been going through the albums that I bought from him, and I'm going to show a few of them that I've become a little bit more familiar with, but I'm still working through all of them. At this point, I've heard them all at least once or twice even, but some of these albums, like for instance, this Brazilian band from 1997, I'd never heard of them. They're called Mosh, and the album is called Private Place. I don't know much about this band. I saw that they were a Brazilian thrash band, and I'm really into finding as many of those as I can lately, so I got it. It's different. The jacket is a slightly different size than usual, so like the normal sleeve wouldn't fit in it, and it needed a new sleeve, so I actually had to cut down this polylined sleeve to fit into it, and it still kind of sticks out the side a little bit. Like the jacket, it's very flimsy paper too. But anyway, as far as I know, there's just this album, and then they do have an EP that came out before this, and I did look for that and I found it. However, it ranges anywhere from $200 to $400, and then you can find it cheaper, but it's in some kind of rare parts of the world that I'm not willing to try to get it from. But anyway, this is for a Brazilian band. It's kind of one of those rare bands that has the female vocalist, which I thought was rather interesting. And when I originally saw this, I actually thought this was from the 80s, but it's not. It's from 1997, like I said. However, that is some really, really good thrash. You could have dropped this in 1987 and it would have fit just fine. The vocalist reminds me like Sabina Clausen from Holy Moses, or Don Crosby during the Detente days back in the mid 80s. Just a really good record. Great stuff. I did look it up, and from what little information I could find, this was all independently released by the band. So that's why the distribution of it is so interesting. And this cover, actually, there's something weird about it. Like, it's not a bootleg, but it's got some weird writing on here, like it was photocopied from some alternate source somewhere, somehow. And it does have a barcode on it, but that's pretty sketchy. I don't know that was a thing. I think it's fake somehow. I don't know anything about this, so if you do, definitely let me know. I think there's a band called Corzas from Brazil, and I think one of these guys may have had something to do with that band, or was in that band or something, but I forgot to look that up. I just remembered something about that, and I meant to kind of follow that lead, but I didn't. So anyway. You ever listen to D.R.I? D.R.I was a band that I had heard of in the skating world. It was like, it's on everybody's skateboard, their logo. And it was on every dumpster that you would come across had, the D.R.I logo on it, and the little guy laying there. And I was skating one time with a friend on a street, nothing important or anything, just kind of hanging out, skating across the road every time there was no traffic. And all of a sudden this car kind of violently pulls up. This guy jumps out, and it was the high school guy named Melvin. How perfect is that? and he had the whole wave thing going on with his hair. This is about 1988, probably. Right in there, that summer. And so he gets into his trunk, gets his skateboard out, and immediately just, shows us up, just completely like showing off. And so then he was like, well, we can't skate here. We got to go skate, over here at this other place or whatever. Why don't you guys get in? So we get thrown into the back seat of the car, and the stereo, of course, gets cranked up. And I don't recognize what it is, but when we got to our destination, I asked him, and he's like, oh, it's D.R.I, Four of a Kind album. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I got to get D.R.I now. So anyway, I was listening to the Violent Pacification EP the other day. I'm a big fan of the D.R.I stuff, especially this earlier stuff, which is, I guess, considered more punk than anything. They weren't really doing the crossover yet thing. This is from 84, and this is the Dirty Rotten EP from 83. And if you listen to these, you can hear how this influenced thrash so much. Whether the bands were influenced directly by listening to D.R.I or the bands were indirectly influenced by this music through bands like listening to Slayer, where you've got Jeff Hanneman, who was really, really inspired by this kind of stuff, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of history in D.R.I music, early D.R.I music. I think something to do with Dave Lombardo wanting to bash the drums the way that he did too on this album. Anyway, so I was listening to that, and then for some reason I could not get this album out of my head, and I really couldn't put it together. I love this record. I've listened to this record for a long time. I had it on CD forever, and then there was a reissue with the demos and stuff, but I've got the vinyl, and I love listening to this, and so for some reason I just had to hear it, and so I put it on, and it's one of those rare times where I put it on and then couldn't get enough of it. And this happens, it's very rare, but when it happens, it's unique. It's like I'm trying to figure something out or something, I can't. But so anyway, I finally figured it out after about 5 or 6 listens over the course of maybe 4 or 5 days that some of the riffs in this were reminding me of the song Violent Pacification by D.R.I. If you haven't heard that song, go check it out. Anyway, so I was just listening to this a lot because of that, and the influence is clearly there, but there's a lot of influence. I mean, the guitar tone on this sounds a lot like Annihilator. They're much more vicious. The other band that this band reminds me of occasionally is Sacred Reich. This is a really, really good record, though. Really good record. Start to finish. It's got massive amounts of riffs on it. It's pretty violent. It's got a lot of technical prowess, although it's just energetic. It's so speedy. It's really good stuff. Anyway, yeah, definitely. Messina Territory. That was the band from the Netherlands, and this album came out in 1990. Midas Touch. Presage of Disaster from 1989. This is the Swedish band. This just kind of has been the mood that I've been in lately. This is always my go-to music, but sometimes more than other times, I guess. But thrash metal has always been my big thing. This album, I guess it's like a loose-based concept album, kind of like before and after The Bomb kind of deal, but I haven't actually delved deep enough to make sure that that's actually cohesive. That's just kind of the idea that I get after listening to it for a long time. This album is rough. It's rough, progressive, fast, Dark Angel kind of thing. It's got Creator, some crossover riffs. Just a violent thrash record, but with a lot of stuff going on, a lot of different stuff going on here. This is the one on the Noise Records. Pretty good stuff. If you don't know this record, definitely check it out. Thundersteel, Riot from 1988, the American band. This is my absolute favorite Riot record. Hands down. This one just fits the aesthetic that I like the very most in this style of music. You know, it's like a heavier version of Crimson Glory, more like a CJSS or something Chaston would do on his solo stuff or his project bands. A lot of energy, a super amount of technical maneuvering, musicianship, songwriting, vocals. Man, the vocals on this record are so amazing. Also, while we're on the subject of this came when I got it. It had a big sticker right here. And for years, I've had to deal with that. I couldn't get it off. Somebody in the comments recommended this product right here. It's called Rapid Remover. And I was able to pick it up on Amazon. They claimed, and I think there was actually more than one guy that claimed that this was the stuff to get to remove stickers safely from old records. Anyway, look at that. You cannot tell that there was ever a sticker there at all. The stuff really worked, so much appreciation to whoever the people were that recommended this product. Like I said, I got it on Amazon, and I think it was maybe $15 for the bottle. So it worked. No more sticker and no residue, and it didn't do anything. No discoloring, nothing. And I tested it first on a small area to see if it would discolor, and it didn't. It didn't do anything. So very cool. Great record. Super stoked to listen to this whenever I do. Found this. I'd wanted this for quite some time. Chariot, the Warrior. 1984, new wave of British heavy metal, kind of on the outskirts of that movement. Obviously from Britain. And it's not a bad record. It's kind of fun. Musicianship is pretty decent. Songs are fun to listen to. But it's not, like a classic or anything like that. More like just an enjoyable. It sounds good. And you know what? There was something really interesting on this. Shades Records. I had never heard of that before out of London. And so what kind of piqued my interest was that they put the logo for Shades as if it was the band name. And I thought, that is so curious. Why would they do that? Well, the reason why is because Shades was a record store, not a record label per se, or at least that's how when I looked it up, that's the information that I got, was that it was a record store in London where you could go to buy records like this. And at least in this one case, maybe more, I don't know, they put out an album. And so, yep, Shade Records, London, 1984. The weak spot on this record would be the vocals, but they're not terrible. They're capable, but a better vocalist may have improved a little bit with some of the instrumentation going on here. But it's not bad, and it was definitely worth tracking down. And I think they've got another one. I'll have to look that up. But anyway, that's the only one I've found so far, so I'll keep looking. And this one is another one that I got thanks to the comments. I had looked past this album. The band Highway Child, I like these guys. They are from the Netherlands. This is from 1984. It's an EP. It was recommended to me as their best material after I had pulled 2 or 3 of their albums off of the shelf, just in a kind of like pulling things off the shelf kind of gig, one of those videos. But so anyway, they recommended this one as their favorite. So I got it, and it was pretty easy to find a good copy of it. And side 1 was kind of underwhelming, a little bit. very similar to their other stuff, where it's like it's pretty good and everything's catchy. Not a lot of teeth to it, but side 2 was much, much better. And so I think if this was your first album from the band, it's an EP, but if it was your first experience with the band, you would probably really like the band. To me, this just reminded me so much of Great White. And I know that might sound funny to some people, but if you're only familiar with the Great White stuff from the later 80s and into the 90s, then that's one thing. But they were much, much closer to a kind of a heavy metal hard rock band. This was their debut EP right here. And this is pretty good stuff if you don't have this. It's raw hard rock. But this one is their greatness right here. Shot in the Dark from 86, I believe. Yep, 86. Side 2 of this is seriously the greatest music that this band ever wrote. Those 4 songs, specifically, the whole album is good, but if you're a hard rock fan and you don't know this album, just check it out. Or any of the songs from side 2. Anyway, I like this old Great White way better than the later stuff. The later stuff kind of had a lot of better deep cuts. You know, you had to get past the singles and all that stuff. But these old Great White records, they're just great, start to finish. The second album from High Tension. Most people are familiar with the first record from 85, Warrior, but I had actually never heard this record until recently. So I'm on a mission now. I've got this one, and I still need their third record from. I think the third record came out in the early 90s, maybe. Shoot, I forgot. Let me know in the comments. I don't know, if you take like Accept and then heavy it up a little bit at times, that's pretty much what you got here. It's pretty good German power metal kind of stuff. It's pretty safe, really good vocalist, great songs, good writing. I would say overall it's a heavy metal record, but it does have a little bit of energy and speed to it at times, which is great. Very melodic. Probably not the classic that the first album is considered to be. I actually have it right here. Still the one to get right here. If you can track this down. Inner Chord. It took me a little while to find this. Good record though. Really happy to have this one. This is the debut album by Leather Witch from Poland. This is Marta Gabriel's new solo record. I guess Crystal Viper is no more. I guess they broke up in 2025. I didn't know that. And so she's put all her effort into this, which I'm pretty happy about. And her vocals are back soaring way up top again, which I really love. So she's a great musician, and she's a good songwriter. She's always written great stuff. Some of the Crystal Viper got a little watered down there towards the end. It's still pretty good, but this is a return to form. I'm pretty stoked to have this. I've been enjoying listening to this one. I had to get the vinyl and the CD because the CD has a cover of Halloween's Walls of Jericho, Ride the Sky. And of course the vinyl has a cover of Manowar's Black Wind, Fire and Steel. And you can only get those unless you download it, I guess. You can only get those if you buy the two different formats. So that's how I did it. That's what I did. Good stuff. Great record. And been listening to this one a lot lately. The new Dimmu Borgir. And if you're not a fan of the band, then you're not a fan of the band, but I like this record a lot. it's front loaded. I'd say the first half is the best half, but the whole record is great. I couldn't help but think about when I was listening to this, as familiarity has crept in, if you dropped this album in 1997, it would sound just fine. It's got just enough of the symphonics. It's got some killer riffs. It's got some attack to it. It's a little bit more on the attack. Shargoth, is that how you say his name? His vocals are definitely a return to form. He's all over it on here. He's got it going. And while it is still symphonic in parts and everything else, it's much more of a cohesive run. Kind of like how it was back in the day before all the symphonies and all the, all this kind of stuff, which is great. There's some great stuff there, but I'm really liking the return to form on this one. I think this is a pretty good record, and I've been listening to it a lot. So, Taro, The Spell of Iron from 1986, the Finnish band. It's like a melodic heavy metal band, power metal, early for that. But this is Marco, how do you say his name? Hayatala, I think. I'm sure I butchered that, but, those Finnish names. This was the debut album, and a lot of people know Marco as the bass player and alternate male vocalist for the band Nightwish. He was in that band for, I don't know, maybe close to a couple decades or something. But anyway, he's with his brother here. This was their first band, and it's still active. They're active again, or maybe they've been active the whole time. I don't know. But their old 80s stuff is really, really good. These are really great, well-written records. There's a lot of musicianship going on here. It's interesting. The albums aren't overly blown or whatever. It's just it's just musicians making a lot of cool sounds with minimal things going on. Guitars, bass, drums, really good drums, and a really, really good, clean vocalist and some energy. Pretty good stuff. Check it out if you haven't. This is my favorite one, but the next 3 or 4 are also pretty good. Beyond that, I haven't explored, but pretty good stuff. Check it out. Symphony X, their 5th record. This one came out in the year 2000, and this was my first Symphony X record, and these were just released on vinyl. Whether or not they had a vinyl run originally, I don't know. I didn't think so, but this was my first experience with the band. This is a pretty good record. Fans are all over the place on this record. Some of them think it's their best work, and some of the other fans from the first few records don't. So I think it was their 5th. Yeah, their 5th record. They always get the Dream Theater comparison, and honestly, I don't hear it. They're progressive. Yes, there's a lot going on. There's all kinds of classical music in here. There's like Verdi, Mozart, Bach, all being played kind of throughout. And if I'm not mistaken, this is a loose concept album based on the writings of Edgar Cayce, and this is kind of like his ideas or his foreshadowing or whatever it was with like Egypt and Atlantis and mythology, astrology, all kinds of stuff like that. But anyway, also I'm to understand that this isn't considered to be the best vocals from Russell Brand, who I think is fantastic. This is good stuff. It's very classical influenced. There's a lot of progressive stuff, but there's some really good riffs. There's some kind of ups and downs. There is a few kind of low spots on here. This album's over an hour long. It's probably about 10 minutes too long in total, but yeah, always liked it. Still listening to it. When I bought this, I was into a lot of bands. I was actually just running through a lot of bands that I wasn't familiar with before, so it was a bit of discovery. Rhapsody was big. I was listening to the first 2 records from that band. Labyrinth like Return to Heaven Denied, I think was big in rotation. Adagio and Camelot, the third Camelot record, I think, right in there somewhere. Maybe it's just the first two at that point in the year 2000. But anyway, I like this band. I like all of the stuff that they did, but because this was my first brush with the band, this is the one that I kind of gravitated to the most, even though there are some other albums like, Paradise, I think, probably a better record. Odyssey, probably a better record, but yeah, whatever. They're all good. Check them out. Well, in keeping with the Brazilian thrash theme, that's just a road that I continue to go down, and I'm going to keep going. I've got a line on some other thrash. It seems like the more I look into the Brazilian thrash scene of the 80s, the more I discover, like, this scene was huge, but I never heard of it. I mean, everybody's heard of Sepultura and, you know, all these other bands, right? All the main ones. But I keep finding these bands, and so this is a new one for me. And this is their second record, Into the Strange by Mutilator. This album came out in 1988, and again, just amazing thrash. Amazing. Like, it totally recalls, like, Possessed or, I don't know, just excellent, reckless thrash. Through a musician lens, though, it's skilled. Like, there's a lot of skill going on here, but the riffs are vicious. And I heard that the first record is even more vicious. I heard this one's more musical, and the first one was more even rough, kind of death thrash. So I've located a few copies of it around the world, and I'm kind of weighing my options. I've emailed a couple of sellers for information because I definitely got to get that first record. But yes, the Brazilian thrash scene, I just can't get enough. I just can't stop. I'm going to keep going too. Really good. Anything I see on that label as well. Cogumelo. I don't think I've ever said that out loud before, but you know that label. That's one of the major underground record labels there. Gonna keep going. Gotta keep finding more of this stuff. There's just too much cool stuff out there that I keep finding that I need it all. Check this out. Justin, here's your Bloodlust LP. Hope you are enjoying it. You should have gotten the $30 money order by now, as well as my want list. If you can find anything on it, let me know price, condition, etc. Send me a complete want list of yours so that I know what to look for. Here also are the 2 tapes for your friend in exchange for the Savage Grace and Merciful Fate LPs. Take a listen to the tapes before you give them to him, since it's all great stuff. I finally found the Titan Force Win or Loser CD, so I should get that in the mail soon. The music is nothing exceptional, not true, but Harry Conklin's vocals make it an amazing album. True. I still haven't been able to find the first Titan Force on CD or LP. That one is more aggressive than Win or Loser. Correct. I'm so excited that Harry is back singing for Jag Panzer again. That dates this letter to about 1996. I just got some cool records recently that you may or may not have already. The self-titled LP by Lord of the Crimson Alliance is incredible. True. I found it for $2.99. Wow. The Holy Moses, finished with the Dogs LP, is great too. The drummer Uli played in Gamma Ray and is now in Halloween. All true. I've never heard German thrash music with a female vocalist before, and she can keep up with anybody. True. I also found a Mekong Delta LP, the music of Eric Zan, which is really strange experimental metal that occasionally borders on thrash. I also recommend Yngwie Malmsteen's Marching Out LP. This is one of the many, many letters that I have from pen pals back in the day. And this was a letter that directly influenced my sending this person my want list, which would result in me finally finding my Bloodlust Terminal Velocity EP. This is the want list that he sent along. And, of course, when you got these want lists, you had to have one of these. These were essential. This was the only way to get word out, you know, to people in other parts of the world who could help you find albums. And we would all do this. We would network together all the time. Albums would be going out. You'd be getting money orders, whatever. Boom, buy, trade, whatever it is, and then get. And I got a lot of hard to get records at the time this way. So you would get these, and it almost was assured that anything on here that you didn't have, you had to find 2 copies. You had to find one for him to send off, and then, of course, one for yourself. This is what they looked like. We would make these and send them off to anybody that would take one, and hopefully they would take these to the local record store and locate these, work out deals with owners and whatnot to hold them, while they then sent a letter back and forth with money orders and everything else, and so we could buy them and then send them off to each other. And so anyway, that directly got me to, well, first off, here's my original 1986 Bloodlust album, Guilty as Sin, the first record. I originally bought this on tape, and it has had the alternate cover. I don't know which one's the original, if the tape always had that alternate cover and the vinyl always had this cover. But, I mean, this cover's okay, but it's not nearly as cool as the other cover, if you've seen it. Anyway, great band. Just love this band. But, boy, was I happy to find this, finally. This is much more thrash. It's much heavier, faster. They had made some lineup changes. You got Steve Gaines on vocals here. A lot of people know him from this record. He was on this record here, Abattoir. And also, can anybody clear this up for me? I thought that Juan Garcia played guitar on this record. Is that not true? I thought that it was. I thought that he played guitar on here before he left for Agent Steel, but he's not listed here. However, he is listed in some of the writing credits. So I don't know, did he play on this full record or not? But anyway, back to Bloodlust. Steve Gaines did the vocals on this record and this Abattoir, and he's a great vocalist. Would have liked more of that. And these albums were reissued recently, and I had to pick these up too because they're so loaded with extra tracks. So I think between the first album and the EP, I think we get all the demo stuff, the 87 demos. We even got a couple of 2005 versions of some of these old songs, and then the original EP. And, of course, liner notes. Lots of cool liner notes. And this one has the rest of the 87 demo stuff. Anyway, there is a time and a place for reissues, and this is definitely one of those times. Torture. Remember this band? Storm Alert from Texas. This was their only full-length album. Violent thrash. Reminds me of Morbid Saint, Numbskull, Sacrifice from Canada, Atrophy, later 80s Creator, kind of like Extreme Aggression era stuff. What a great record. This is from 1989, sorry. One of the things I love about this record so much is the guitar tone. The guitar tone is very unique on this album. I think the technical term for it would be it's got a lot of mid to it. It's very heavy, but it's very clear. The bass and the drums are also very clear on here, so it's very punishing when the band lines up. It's a lot like a wall of sound coming at you. and it's very good. The lyrics are rather cheesy. They're on the cheesy side, to be sure. Lyrically, it reminded me a lot of like, I don't know, something that would have been on the Coven Blessed is the Black album or something like that. Or even like some of the more tongue-in-cheek forced entry stuff. Speaking of which, this forced entry finally got this. This is a reissue of the record, reissue of the album, but it had never been on vinyl before, so it's the first time on vinyl. Man, what a wicked record this is. I was listening to it again, and just kind of a refresher on it. All the different styles going on. It's so much better than the first record. Some progressive tendencies going on here. Everything from hardcore, even a little bit of like grungy kind of groove. But overall, this is a pretty wicked thrash album with a lot of technical skill. A really, really good record. Really happy with the reissue as well. I keep saying reissue, but it's never been on vinyl before. But they did a really good job with it. It sounds great. It was on the M Theory label. Great liner notes. Lots of historical stuff. You know I love all this stuff. Sometimes I sit down and just devour this stuff while I'm listening to the record. And then I'll get reading. You know, they always put lots of cool stuff to read in these. And then realize that a song's gone by and I didn't hear it, so I gotta listen to it again. Good stuff. Pyraandra. Okay, that's how you say it. Boy, if that album art isn't a selling point, I don't know what is. That's definitely what drew me to it. But I wasn't prepared for the level of amazing that was on this record. This is their debut album from 1990, the German band. And it's basically like thrash, but with a super ton of melody. When they're not playing full-on thrash, it's speed metal with a really, really good high singer. Kind of like similar to something Mike Howe would do. So he's got some grit. He's very clean up top, very powerful in all the different range, and whatever the song needs, the guy can deliver. So he doesn't sound like Mike Howe, but it's that same style of level of dexterity that Mike had in the Metal Church days back in 88, 89 and on into the 90s. Anyway, love this record so much. I've got all their stuff, but the next album, I like it almost as much as this one. And they reformed and they did an album, I think in 2024, I think, is okay. Same vocalist even, but it just doesn't have the same kind of magic that this album has. And especially the first two. If you're not familiar, definitely check this band out. Really, really good stuff. So was really disheartened to hear that Mike Browning passed away at, I believe, age 62. Its details have been a little sketchy. I'm always curious what people pass away from because I'm human. But the kind of lack of information is sketchy at best. But I guess he had some health issues and had been or had in the past suffered with maybe some alcoholism or something. I'm not exactly sure. That's what the internet said. Take that for what it's worth. I didn't know the man. But I sure knew his work. Now, not as much as I wish I knew it, but his work, he was a co-founder of Morbid Angel, and he played on this record here, which was supposed to be their first record, but was shelved after a spat between Mike and Trey. You can look that up online. But so anyway, he left the band, and I guess the band reconfigured things, and anyway, they came up with their Altars of Madness album instead, which a lot of these songs ended up being re-recorded for that record. And in fact, this album wouldn't have been released in this version, although it had been heavily bootlegged since 1986. This is a very early version of extreme metal as far as I'm concerned. The drums, the guitars, the vocals, everything on here. Mike he had it going on. So everything on this record would eventually be re-recorded for albums, except for, correct me if I'm wrong, but Demon Seed was never re-recorded for anything or used in any other way except for on this record here. But anyway, yeah, it's sad to hear of his passing. When he left that band, everybody knows this already, but he formed Nocturnus. And he played in this band. I think he did the 2 records and an EP or something, and then he left this band too. But the key is just it's a continuation of the ideas that were going on here. And you can hear, like, Chapel of Ghouls, of course, it has that keyboard thing in it. I think that was Mike Browning. I think that those were his ideas. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was kind of his, like, idea of doing all that, because it sure translated flawlessly here into this band and would become a staple of this band. Whereas Morbid Angel didn't really do much with that after that point. Just a classic death metal record. Most people already know this record. Mike did a bunch of other stuff, and there's going to be people way more knowledgeable about his, bands that he was in. But as far as I know, there's very little other material to get other than Nocturnus, Morbid Angel, and of course Nocturnus AD, which those 2 records are phenomenal records. They're more modern. But there is a highly sought after demo 7-inch that I have a line on, called a band called Incubus that Mike did. So I'm trying to get that now. I've seen it online and I'd like to hear it and hear kind of what was going on there. But other than that, what a loss. He was a skilled musician. He was one of those guys back in the 80s that was doing the drums and the vocals at the same time. And I don't know how those guys did that, especially when he was doing that gruff death metal style vocal, how he was able to play that way on the drums and use the appropriate parts of his body to make that voice. Must have been in some serious good shape to be able to pull that off. Of course, you have other examples of that, but yeah, really tragic to hear the loss of Mike Browning. Sabbath live. I was watching this the other day. Wasn't watching it on VHS, but this is my original 1990 VHS that I had the local record store order in for me, which was funny because at the time they were a little concerned that it might have some swearing on it. I had to assure them that the band would never swear. So yeah, there's no swearing on there except for the swear words. These days, I watch it on YouTube usually, or luckily Andy Sneap has gone and given me a DVD version of it in the box set that came out. But the greatest part of this box set is the vinyl version. And why is that so great? Well, because this is the only way to get the full set list, including Wildfire, which was omitted from the other versions of this show. This is the only place that exists. So it's the complete concert here on 2 records, including amazing pictures and all that other stuff. This box set is actually quite awesome. Some more live stuff from the radio, I believe this was on. But yeah, it's just, I never heard these versions before. You've got the first record, and these are the remastered versions by Andy Sneap, and the second record. So there's a tiny bit of changes in there from the original recordings, and then you've got the book, which I love these books. I just get lost in these books full of historical information, lyrics, stories behind the songs, all these cool old pictures and stuff. You used to have to collect a pile of magazines to get a lot of these pictures, but now, you can get them in one place. Fraser Krask. That bass player right there was like the second coming of Cliff Burton as far as I'm concerned. I never heard a guy play a bass so amazing as he did in this band with the thrash metal that they were playing. What he was playing underneath was so good. Anyway, great box set. Into the light. And last but not least, took a run through this. Once again, just love King Diamond, but again, just another phenomenally amazing record. Another concept album, of course, although a lot of it's based on reality. The Witch Trials, 1642. I love this record. This is the album that taught me that this quest for music was never going to end, and it was only going to be more powerful. I was laying on the couch in the middle of the night listening to college radio, and they decided to debut a new King Diamond song from the album that had just been released called D.R.I. News to me, it's also the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep because all I could think about is how am I going to get the money I need, the place I need that has the album I need. That's all I could think about. So for all this time, my goal has always been find the album, get the album, the next thing, the next one. And this is kind of the album that kind of alerted me to my unwilling need to find it, to get it, to have it, and experience it. And I still do that to this day. I was doing it before that, just became cognizant of it. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.
It's the most vicious music out of the moment. I think in your blurb it says there are no Bible classes for these boys.
Well, we basically just like to shock people.
Yeah.
Horror and stuff like that has been something that people have gone and paid money to see to get shocked. They go to amusement parks or whatever. They go to haunted houses to get shocked. People like to be shocked because life is boring.